Buffalo, New York's four-term mayor lost the Democratic primary race to a socialist community organizer. Now, Mayor Byron Brown is hoping to stay in office by winning via write-in campaign. For more on this race, I want to bring in Shawn Donahue. He's an assistant professor of political science at the University at Buffalo. Thank you so much for being with us. So two Democrats remain in the race for mayor, even though one of them lost the primary in June. In some places, that would disqualify a candidate from continuing. So give us an overview of this race.
So again, as you said, what happened is that the mayor lost in the primary, but New York does not have a sore loser law, meaning that he is able to mount a write-in campaign. Now, what he had tried to do more recently was to try to create his own ballot line and actually filed lawsuits in state and federal court, where the trial courts ruled in favor of him, but then the appellate courts in New York and the Second Circuit ruled against him. So he's going back to having a write-in candidacy to try to win his fifth term.
Right. So, I mean, that explains why he's running this write-in campaign. How does India Walton's success reflect Buffalo's changing demographics?
Well, for the first time since the 1950s, Buffalo actually gained population. And part of that has been from the increase in immigration and refugees into the area. Some of the areas that have experienced some of those increases were areas that she did quite well in the primary.
Yeah, and just give us, for people who aren't familiar with Buffalo, I wonder, Shawn, if you could just kind of give us a sense of the place and the history and sort of, you know, its role as a place of sort of manufacturing and what that environment was like, because I think there's a shift that is happening that would seem to sort of mirror what has happened in other communities across the country.
Well, it's a city in a region that had been in decline for quite a while with the decline in manufacturing. And over the past decade, maybe 15 years or so, you've seen a great deal of investment by the state of New York into the area with the so-called Buffalo Billion, and also making up some of the people that have been leaving by immigrants and refugees moving into the area, which has been something that a number of cities in upstate New York have been very welcoming to refugees. But
well,
at this time, it seems like...
Oh, go ahead, Shawn. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say that it has seemed like the economy has started to rebound in the Buffalo area in this decade. And that's something that the mayor has been trying to push, as saying that he deserves some of the credit for the fact that Buffalo is gaining population.
Right. It's such a fascinating trajectory because, as I said, I mean, if you look at other communities across the country where, you know, they too had been in decline, and you see the same kind of dynamic playing out where different populations may move in and then inject some economic activity into the region, you know, leads to moments like this. So national progressive politicians like Senator Bernie Sanders and Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez are backing India Walton. How do you see this contest playing into the Democrats' intra-party conflict on a national level?
Well, the fact is that Buffalo is an overwhelmingly Democratic city. President Biden got around 79% of the vote in the city. So there isn't a whole lot of Republican conservative support in the city. And one thing that Ms. Walton has tried to attack Mayor Brown for is that he has accepted support from a number of conservative and Republicans in the area, as well as a number of developers in his campaign finance reports. But this would be quite critical. This would be very important for progressives if and Ms. Walton, since she does identify as a Democratic Socialist, moving forward into future elections. So you may recall that you have Congressman Ocasio-Cortez was elected several years ago from a constituency in New York City. You have Jamal Bowman as well, defeated an incumbent in the last election, as well as a number of people that were a member of the Democratic Socialist won seats in the New York legislature. So one person that has came and campaigned for Ms. Walton is Jumaane Williams, who is the public advocate in New York City, who was looking at a race against Governor Hochul in 2022. And I think he would definitely like to have an ally in Western New York, which is where Governor Hochul is from.
Wow, I hadn't realized that sort of backstory and backdrop. It has been, this dynamic back and forth between moderates and progressives in the Democratic Party, really up and down the line. It sounds like happening in places like Buffalo as well. Shawn Donahue, Shawn, good to have you. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.